YouTuber writing a book?
Who do they think they are? Sounds shit to me. Hello. If this is your first trip to Narnia, I am the book beaver. No, if this is your first time to my channel, hello, my name is Lena. I like wearing glasses, but the light reflects on them, so you can't see my eyes. And my eyes tell the truth. My name is Lena. I make videos about social change and books, but if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I work in the book industry. I've actually made a whole series about working in the book industry, the things that I've done in it, how you can get into it, it's all up there. Part of my job, especially when working in sales, was looking at a breakdown of how much you make per book. At one point I even ran a bookshop for a national newspaper, and I really saw the figures broken down there. And then also as my role as part of the comms department, who are marketing and publicity, often when I've had roles in those fields, I've been privy to conversations around which books we should publish. In this video, as you might have seen by the title, I want to discuss some myths around the idea of a YouTuber book. I'll dish my disclaimers now. I speak for me. I don't speak for any company I've worked for, past or present. Just me, just here making some observations. And again, also, I have seen a lot of numbers, but obviously for obvious reasons I can't share all those publicly. But I will be giving rough estimates and referencing some numbers that are in the public sphere. I am not an author myself, nor do I have any personal stake in any particular author doing particularly well. I am just a decade-long member of the YouTube community and a lifelong member of the book community, and where they meet and have happy times, I'm really happy, and when there is a disconnect or a misunderstanding between them, all my little heart wants is to help mend it. So the rise of the vlogger, particularly the professional vlogger, was a controversial one for many reasons. Potentially because the news outlets that were reporting on how weird and bad it was were threatened by the amount of numbers and democratic coverage those people got over them, many of whom are funded by suspicious sources. But with the rise of the professional vlogger, and also in tandem with the professional vlogger, became the YouTube author. What does it mean? We're still unclear. But essentially, I guess it functions to mean somebody who has an online presence leveraging that presence to get a book deal and then sell their books to their own audience and or the general public. I say in tandem with becoming a professional YouTuber because the rise of the YouTuber also meant the rise of free content being distributed to thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and then that really lowering the expectation of how much money you should be giving in exchange for a product when that product or service isn't being funded by a government grant or a pot of money that everybody puts into and everybody benefits from, i.e. libraries, free schooling, arts council funded projects. These are all things that hopefully you think are worthwhile, and again, if you kind of went to school and found out that your teachers weren't being paid, you'd think that was weird. But you'd also think it's weird if everybody in the UK, say, had to pay for schooling. Do you see there's a disconnect where somebody has to intervene and be like, hey, we need to make sense of this somehow? So again, a lot of the book deals and ways that YouTubers could become full-time YouTubers and claim that as a space in society, as a place that they could justify giving away content for free, some of it being very beneficial to people, is because they got book deals, because they could subsidise that income with a tangible physical product that they could offer people if they would like to buy it, an extra on the free content they already give them. With that came the great Zalfie scandal of 2014. Zoella, one of the biggest YouTubers at the time in the country, came out with her book Girl Online. It sold a lot of copies, and it came out that she had help writing the book, and that was scandalous for many people. Not me, not included in that many people. However, since then there's been a lot of controversy around being seen to profit from their audience and or get opportunities that other people don't because of the platform they hold. Now, before we get on to the assumptions, I would like to make a little assertion that there are hundreds of examples in the UK alone of people that come from backgrounds that aren't usually privy to media access, that don't have the credentials, education or connections to grow a platform like this. And without accessible equipment and free software like YouTube to upload your content to, they would never have found the audience that they have. In the current class climate that we live in. So while there is a privilege to having an audience, privilege isn't a prerequisite to getting one. There is an inherent, almost Victorian idea of the elite and how they get there, and YouTube is a interesting twist on that. I'm not saying that it's a revolution or that it's completely changed the fucked up way our society works, but it has twisted it a little bit. It's given it a different angle. I find it interesting. Anyway, the first assumption is they are only in it for the money. Every person who works in publishing darkly laughs at this moment. Being an author in the UK is becoming harder and harder and harder. The Authors Licensing Committee reported that in 2014, the average earning of an author was like 17 or 18 grand, I think. And in 2017, it was only £10,000 a year. We can have talks, we can hold conferences, we can hold summits on why that can be improved and all of the mechanisms behind that. But the fact is that on average, it's very likely that if you release a book, you're not going to make a full year's wage from it, just for a year. Even if the book takes you 2, 5, 7 years to write, it's very unlikely that you're going to make a whole year's worth of minimum wage salary from that. Again, I can't mention numbers I actually know or the specifics, but I will say as a swooping generalisation that while I have seen at the beginning of the YouTuber boom in publishing, where every publisher was signing up YouTubers, I've seen a decline in those advances and what people get for them. And on a lot of cases, I've seen a YouTuber, similar to many debut authors, get between 5 and 10 grand for the advance for their book. And that's not accounting for all the free labour they did proposing the idea for the book and potentially writing at least a fraction of the book before having it bought by a publisher. So while it is possible to make loads of money if you're a YouTuber and you have a book, it is by no means something you can know about a YouTuber by looking at them or watching their channel. In fact, it is as unknowable to an average Josephine like me as their blood group, or their tea preference, or their favourite Friends character. You can't know that unless it's reported in outlets like The Bookseller or Book Brunch. It is completely a private affair how much an author is paid, and only really the author, their agent and their editor will know. The upfront time investment and therefore cost to the author is I would say in 90% of cases, much higher than the advance they get for their books at the beginning of their contract. But do they make money after that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I will answer in the second assumption. They will only have success as an author because of their audience. Let's take the biggest hitter as an example here. It was 2014. Girl Online is released. The girl has millions of followers online. She does not sell millions of books. In fact, she sells 390,000 copies, which is phenomenal, but not millions. It shooketh the world. However, her second book, Going Solo, only sold half that many copies, 200,000. Alfie Day's book sold less than Zoella's book. He sold 364,000 copies, which is still incredible, but it's not as much as some of the biggest fiction writers in the world. And his second book, again a phenomenal amount, but less than half of his first book, 179,000 copies. His third book, released in 2017, sold only 32,000 copies, which again is an incredible amount. But if we assume because of pricing models, he made a maximum of £1 per book, which is a generous estimation, he would only have got normal middling London wage for somebody in their mid-20s. Obviously he makes money in other ways, but you see my point. Units written, units sold, outcome, not a sultan yet. When publishers are discussing whether to buy a book, it's not just the size of the audience that comes into play, it's the proposal, the genre that book will sit in and how well that genre sells, i.e. cookery YouTube books are doing amazingly right now. The concept, whether it will stretch to people outside of their audience sphere, and also, really big one, if their audience are likely to be book buyers. They look at that demographic, whether the people who like that author are already into the habit of buying books, if they are people that like to collect books, that books are a product that they would potentially see themselves buying. For example, arguably, because I make videos about books and I have hundreds of thousands of screenshots of you guys telling me that you've bought books because I've recommended them, I'd be in, I think, an okay position to say, hey, I would like to be published because the people who watch my channel definitely like books. Whereas somebody who makes makeup videos, it's harder to gain data from that audience and work out whether the Venn diagram is that they are makeup lovers and also book lovers. Do you see what I mean? But it is like a known fact to publishers when they sign up authors that just because somebody has an audience doesn't mean they're going to be able to sell books. So really, when you see a YouTuber published now in particular, you know that the material they're giving is of a high quality, that they think the book will sell outside of the audience, and they really have picked it. You don't just automatically get a book deal because you are a YouTuber, especially now. The third assumption is they are taking the opportunity away from a really talented writer who studied for it. My rebuttal to this comes in 4 parts. Are you excited? I'm excited. This is often referenced when a YouTuber hasn't shown a lot of books in their videos, may not appear to read, hasn't done an English degree. Why am I doing that with inverted commas? English degrees are real. And I say this with somebody with a master's degree in English literature. You can't study to be a good writer. That's not a thing. You can't. This is intellect plus intuition plus inspiration plus chutzpah. What makes you and trains you to be a good reader and a good critic does not necessarily make you a good writer. If you are naturally a good writer, I think you're more likely to become a great writer if you do study academically, mainly just because of the sheer volume and depth and breadth of the amount of work you're asked to read. You absorb a lot of vocabulary, you learn about structure, you learn about the devices that you might use in your writing and be able to describe them with labels. You're more likely to avoid the tropes that have been done. I can make a whole other video on what done really means. But it is also to have a compelling story and to tell it by ear. In the same way that if you're a musician, some people study for years to be able to sight read and build a keyboard from scratch. And some people have natural perfect pitch and can improv and can just write songs and don't need to know the names of the chords to be playing a chord. Being a good writer is being a good communicator, and there are lots of different ways you can study or learn to do that, especially when it comes to the psychology of people, really understanding a character. Those are things you can work on, but you can't teach. My second point is that the job of publishers is to literally package things that people are already interested in, make a quality product and sell it to that audience for money. That is why you had so many mindfulness books last year. Jesus Christ. If I see another colouring book, as long as I live, it'll be too soon. And the passion and the intersection between art and business that publishing embodies is that because they're doing good business and can sell large quantities of stuff to a wide audience, they use some of that money to put into the people that don't have as big audiences, that have no platform, and that's how the cogs work. I don't know how else to communicate that to you. It's okay that you didn't know. It's not something that has really any reason to teach the public about, but it's just the basics of business, is that you, especially business with compassion and the arts in mind, is that you use one to subsidise the other. They're not interchangeable. One person's opportunity is not another person's loss. In fact, one person's opportunity can birth somebody else's opportunity very easily. That is a direct correlation. My third point 3C, the controversial ghostwriting story around Zoella and similar people that like it, I think, and I speak on behalf of me, genuinely came around because there was naivety on the side of the publishers that thought that people already knew that wasn't news, because it's been happening since the dawn of time with celebrity memoirs, and treating these things like celebrity memoirs means that they get that same help, that same support to tell their stories. And that just happens literally all the time in celebrity memoirs. I don't know how else to tell you. But there was a breakdown in communication, I think, between the authenticity and the mystique of the fiction publisher that people have interacted with in their years reading as children and meeting authors and seeing authors and being like, the authors write the books, which is very true when it comes to fiction, especially children's authors, and then moving into an adult reading space where they are buying from somebody whose platform is based on authenticity, and then not realising that a book is a collaborative project all of the time. Even the most literary books, the Man Booker Prize winners, the ones that will go on the curriculum in 10 years, were edited, sometimes quite heavily, by incredibly talented editors who work with an author on what they want the book to be, what they see working, and tweaking it, moulding it, making it what it is. And it's a spectrum. Obviously, it's different to ghostwriting. But the collaborative thing that Zoella seemed to have done with her ghostwriter is in probably one of the more milder situations I've seen of ghostwriting. There are cases where like celebrities have had so little to do with their books that they haven't even read them themselves. Just something I heard. It's just a rumour. I think both the influencer world and the publisher world learned a huge lesson in that news story, and I don't think it will happen again in the same way ever, because it was like a weird moment of two worlds colliding and neither really understanding the other. And then 3D, my last point to contradict this assumption, is this gateway drug kind of idea. This idea that there are people who see themselves as readers and people who don't feel invited into the bookshop don't automatically reach for a book, for whatever reason, live a life that doesn't have books in the background as part of their default. Having people produce books for audiences that don't always interact with those spheres, weren't taken to the library as children, don't feel invited into reading spaces, is not only a bonus but essential to the survival of the book market and of writers in general, of art, of things. It's a ecosystem. You can't take out the bees from the environment, and you can't take out the mass market books from the book trade. When a creator of any size and any kind of subject genre reaches out with free content to people of any age and encourages them to buy and read a book, you can make a reader for life from that. There is an addiction, there is a healthy need, a stimulating mindfulness that comes from reading, and it's great. There's a research that shows that whether a kid or a young person reads factors more into their socioeconomic future than their parenting, financial status, or anything else. Like, it's the big one. So wherever a writer is writing from, if they're reaching out to people that may not otherwise buy a book, this is a thing to be celebrated by book lovers. Please celebrate with me. Grab your party hat. This is a fiesta. We're excited about that. If you're a book nerd, if you're a book lover, if you are a book person like me, and you weren't sure how you felt about that, I'll tell you how you feel about that. You feel very excited about it. That's how you feel about it if you are a book lover. So, in summary, yes, of course, when somebody wants to write a book and a publisher is thinking about letting them, the avenues that they have access to contributes to that decision. Of course it does. That can be a YouTube channel. It could also be a column in a newspaper. Excellent connections. They've won a prize at some point. They happen to be the relative of somebody particularly famous. The straws will be clutched at. Anything contributes to that, and the way that is weighted is up to the editor and the people who are buying the book, and that is often nebulous. It's not something you can just put in a graph. Also, there's something in publishing where there is like almost a kind of like fetishization of the debut author. So you'll see a lot of debut authors get 6-figure deals when they're completely unknown because like somebody wants to be the first person to discover them. There's a sensationalism around investing in unknown authors. Most of the time in my publishing career, the divisions that I've worked in, the biggest books that we'll be working on that year, the one priority that everybody's told this is the priority, is an unknown author. They don't have any platform of their own. Sometimes they don't even have a Twitter account, but they're the books that are seen to sit in the sweet spot between being excellent art that will last forever and commercially viable enough to put hundreds of thousands of pounds behind. And I think that is an incredible thing. But people, I could call them creators, but let's just call them people for a second, giving out content for free and then making 1 or 2 products that they can offer to sell to subsidise the free content is amazing to me. And when those objects aren't about looking good, feeding the fast fashion industry, feeding diet culture, or general fuckery, I am so excited to see that. So if you love a YouTuber and they have made a book, I suggest that you buy it. It really supports them. If you can, it's amazing. Check it out of your library because they get paid as well if you check a book out of the library. We're working very hard to make sure that if you can't afford a book, you can still read it for free. Publishers, people in the book industry, amazing people are all working every single week to make sure that libraries stay open in the UK, because it's a struggle, I can tell you. And if a YouTuber you don't love is writing a book, leave them the fuck alone. Why do you care? Amanda Palmer explains this very well in her TED talk. The idea, she used to be a street performer and she'd give out flowers to people who put money in her box, and people would lean out of the window when they were driving past in a car and be like, get a real job. And she's like, this is my job. And those people from the outside, between an audience and a creator who don't understand the relationship between an author and a creator, can comment on it in this really misinformed way, because they don't understand the exchange between two people, and that's okay. In the same way that you might not understand why I want to loan my neighbour some sugar and I won't ask for it back, or loan a friend some money when they're going through a hard time even though they've been a shit to me in the past. They're all private exchanges you'll never be able to understand the nuances of, and it's just between the choices, the autonomy of the people involved. I have an incredible group of people called the Gumption Club, my patrons, who tip me money for the things I already make for free because they find value in it and they want me to keep doing it. And that means so much to me. And you might want to turn around and be like, you get the content for free, why'd you pay for it? And I'd be like, I don't know, but these people are just art angels and they just want the art to exist for you for free, and it's nice. That wasn't a segue into joining the Gumption Club, but if you would like to join the Gumption Club, it would be relevant to this video. If you're interested, this whole discussion came about because I have been reading Melanie Murphy's If Only on my Kindle, and when I messaged her to say that I was really enjoying it and I'd bought it on Kindle, she was relieved and gave me examples of the things that people have been saying about her book, and it made me pick up all of these notes that I've just been talking about in this video. I've had these notes on my phone for ages, like planning these videos, because it happens every time a YouTuber has a book. So I'd also like to plug the women in your life, not in the butt, in the wallet. I'd also like to plug The Hormone Diaries by Hannah Witten, one of my good friends, which is coming out on the 13th of June and is incredible. Lex Croucher's book, You're Crushing It, which is coming out on the 13th of June as well. If you've got some pocket money, you've got ample choice. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any more questions about publishing and how books are made, do leave them in the comments, because I'd like to try and answer some more in future videos. Thank you so much for humouring this rant, and I will see you in my next one. Frog Snug out.